Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome into the program. We have a great show planned for you today because, we have one of our favorite guests here. We'll really, one of our favorite companies that makes, a lot of products that we use here on the show at home, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. And we have Netgear on the show with us to talk about specifically their Nighthawk line of routers. And, this is something that I think a lot of experienced techies, know how important the router is to a home system. But, to a lot of people out there, they rent one from their cable provider and they never really think about it again. But you can get a lot of performance, you can get a lot of connectivity by just upgrading that one piece of equipment. So here to talk with us about that is Mr. Abhay Bhorkar. And before we get started with him, though, a few things I should mention, including ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything to do with the show, including a link to any websites or products that we talk about here with Netgear, any computer and technology news that we do, just everything and anything will be at ComputerAmerica.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the contests with Logitech. Every single Friday, we give away a prize. And the last thing is the video portion, where you can see Computer America and not just listen to it. So, but, long-term listeners know all that. And, of course, long-term listeners should be no stranger to today's guest. So why don't we jump right into this? And I apologize, I should probably have caught this before the show, but technical difficulties abound. But joining us via phone is Mr. Abhay Bhorkar, who is the director of product marketing for the Connected Home. And Abhay, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for that introduction.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. And I'm sorry again. I should have gotten this, but is Mr. Arun there as well?
No, it's only going to be me joining the call.
All right, that is perfectly fine. That you sound good, and we have plenty to talk about. So I think we'll get started off with the basics. I think again, people should be no stranger to Netgear. They're one of the largest manufacturers of routers out there. But give us a little bit of a background on the maybe they haven't heard specifically of the Nighthawk line of routers. So give us a little bit of a background on the Nighthawk line of products and a little bit of your background. How did you kind of come into Netgear?
Hello?
Oh, hi. Sorry. I'm not sure if you could hear the question. But again, the question was, could you give us a little bit of a background on the Nighthawk line of routers and a little bit of your background, as in how you got involved with Netgear?
Sure. So Netgear essentially started with the whole notion of connecting everybody to the internet and on the consumer side. And as the Wi-Fi took off, Netgear essentially introduced a lot of cutting-edge products on the Wi-Fi routers. But in few years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, we recognized this need for premium Wi-Fi. And what it means is it's not just premium price, essentially, but it's Wi-Fi becoming more and more ubiquitous in the home, with the smartphones taking off and laptops being fitted by default with Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi reach inside the home started becoming a bottleneck. And that's where we introduced this product line called Nighthawk, which essentially promises customers something which is really premium in terms of features. So it will always use most advanced Wi-Fi available. It will always be cutting edge, like 11N, 11AC, 11AD. So your latest technology gadget that you purchase, that 4K TV, iPhone 6, iPhone 7, Galaxy S6, will work with it and you can maximize their potential, right? Because you're spending so much money on these expensive equipment. If your Wi-Fi is not good, then you're kind of wasting their potential. You can't watch television in that 4K glory. It also was fitted with very high-end processors. So basically, it kind of took a page from your PCs upgrading the processors. We fitted it with like dual-core 1 gigahertz. So all the Nighthawks come minimum with a dual-core processor. This is again to accommodate people doing more and more with their router. Router was supposed to be only for connectivity, but with Nighthawk, we are kind of bringing them for all the other usage, it being the center of your home Wi-Fi network. Right. We added a lot of USB ports. Sorry, go ahead.
And we're going to get into the features in just a moment, but talking again about Netgear, and obviously the you already mentioned that the Nighthawk line is going to have the latest technology. Is that what makes the Nighthawk brand so popular? I mean, is it, some of it has to be about aesthetics, because if you're watching the video portion, anyone out there, these things are designed to, Nighthawk always kind of reminded me of like, some kind of fighter jet. And,
Yep.
These things do have, they do have an aesthetic about them. So what makes these so popular with people?
Yeah, so basically when we look at a Nighthawk, right, it gives that feel of power and performance, and which is where it has that techie, edgy look, which once you have it inside your home, it kind of screams the performance that you are going to get. It comes with high power Wi-Fi, so that's where we kind of give it a look of a stealth fighter, working behind the background to get your network supercharged. Right. So that's where every time we kind of come up with a new Nighthawk product, we will go back to that basics of it has to resonate with our core audience and customers who look at it and kind of, get that satisfaction of having something really powerful.
Right. Yeah. And so, tell us a little bit about, the different ones, because, we're at the website, we're poking around, and you have a number of different ones. You have some designated with, all of them are either X4, 610. Some are designated with an S at the end of it. Tell us about the different offerings that you have for the Nighthawks.
Sure. So what we recognize is, again, every home and every person is not the same, and their use of their home Wi-Fi network is also not the same. Just case in point, simply you may have different number of devices based on size of your house and how techy you are. Like, I have only 3 members in my house, but I have 30 devices online at any given time, right? I wouldn't say that's normal, but still, if you count that, thermostat here and there, and then you have these streaming devices, that number gets high up there, right? So that's where we started with first one Nighthawk, and that was sufficient at that time of launch. Now we have multiple series, and the way we look at it is it's really for people who want different things from the router. So the base Nighthawk is really ideal for general purpose streaming and browsing everyday need. So it comes with like powerful 1 gigahertz dual core processor, and it's always, it's one of the most popular products even now, and it's just the basic Nighthawk. After that, we essentially have the Nighthawk X4S. That kind of takes up the speed of the processor to 1.7 gigahertz and adds one more USB 3.0 port. This is essentially, it's a 4-stream, not going into too much technology there, but 4-stream Wi-Fi, which makes it the reach even longer and performance with mobile devices even better. So this is ideal for those who are looking for more of a streaming and gaming performance with their router with quality of service built in. So it kind of provides more coverage for a larger household or a more dense network. Then we were the first ones in the industry to introduce technology for tri-band, and which is what is part of our Nighthawk X6 and X6S products. What tri-band essentially does is, think about it as adding one more lane on your freeway. So now this is kind of getting to a serious audience where if you, let's say, have this 20, 30, 40 devices, ultimately all of them are competing with each other for the airwaves.
And
So,
just to just kind of ask you a question. I mean, I've heard dual band. I've seen tri-band kind of battered around. I haven't really dug into it, but I know dual band was routers that had both. I think it was like the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz, frequencies. What does it add another 5 gigahertz band, or is it another standard altogether? Like, is it like a 7.8 or something?
So for our tri-band routers, it's adding another 5 gigahertz band. 5 gigahertz is still the more relatively cleaner band and gives more faster performance. So most of the newest devices already have 5 gigahertz band in them. So in a tri-band, you get 2.4 gigahertz for all your standard and legacy devices. And then you can use the 5 gigahertz band for your tech, more latest technology devices. And in some senses, like if you're a gamer out there, in a tri-band, you could essentially create a special lane for yourself by devoting one band, let's say, for all your only gaming devices, right? And then everybody else shares the remaining 2 bands. The tri-band kind of gives you these multiple ways of slicing and dicing your universe, especially if you have more than 20, 30 devices. It's a very highly recommended that you go to a tri-band router.
Gotcha. So, and a step up from that would be the X6S, I assume. So, and this is the first time that, well, not the first time you're on the show, but something that is only now starting to become, more and more of an issue, or at least, a topic. And I'll admit, Netgear seems to be the one pushing it, but what is MU-MIMO, and why is it important to people?
Yeah, so MU-MIMO, or what we call multi-user MIMO, that technology was introduced just like a couple of years ago, and it's starting to become mainstream only now. The idea is, if in Wi-Fi technology in general, it's only one device gets to talk at a time. So when router is transmitting to your TV, and you then need to transmit to your iPad, they need to all take turns. So router can transmit to TV. Once it's done, it will transmit to your iPad. Once it's done, it will transmit to your gaming system. So you can see that it kind of goes a little bit in a round robin fashion. That does end up wasting the air time because your other devices have to wait. So if you are streaming to these 3 devices, you can see kind of a little bit of a lag in getting that good performance. What multi-user MIMO does is it allows the router to essentially transmit to all 3 devices at the same time. So it's kind of like, from your postal office dispatching one car with multiple packages in that, right? So you're not making this round trip every time you have to transmit the next thing. You don't start from scratch. You just kind of get the medium and then transmit to all 3 of them. Next thing comes in, you again transmit to all 3 of them. So it's kind of more in bursts to all 3 simultaneous transmissions. So what we have seen is if your devices are MU-MIMO capable and your router is MU-MIMO capable, you can actually get an overall performance boost of up to 2 to 2.5 times than if you didn't have one.
Right, and so MIMO, I guess multi-input, multi-output. So no, makes perfect sense, and you can definitely see why you'd want that. For situations where 20, 30 devices. Again, I think honestly you're probably on the far end of the spectrum, but you're probably it's not that 20, 30 devices is obscene or ridiculous or anything like that. It's probably more the line that you're probably just a couple years ahead of the rest of us, where connected homes, they're going to have 20 or 30 devices easily in the next couple of years. So, it's good that you're putting this kind of technology out to, not play catch up, but kind of future proof yourself a little bit. So, so that's the X6S. And now the next one up, and this is one that we actually reviewed here on Computer America. Netgear was kind enough to send one out, but the X10, and this thing is a beast, I'll be honest. So tell us about this one.
Yeah, so this is our flagship product, and as you kind of correctly indicated, it is really great for power users. It is still the fastest router in the market with a quad-core 1.7 gigahertz processor. And it's not just the processor, but we built it with all the bells and whistles IOs, which kind of make it the fastest. It has 6 gigabit ports. But main thing for those who are consuming a lot of media, either creating and consuming a lot of media, this is a really cool router with lots of technology. It has Plex media server built in. And for those who know about Plex, it's a really, or those who don't know about Plex, it's really a cool media server which actually can take your video files and transcode it on the fly. What it means is, let's say if you have a movie, it could be a home movie or any other source, and you have stored it on your USB hard disk and you want to watch it on any TV, like let's say TV in the bedroom, TV in the living room, or an iPad or an iPhone, the Plex server will actually convert it from the 1080p to 480p or change the audio codec, or it does this decision on the fly to give the viewer the best experience based on its device and environment, right? So it's kind of, you don't have to now create different versions of the file, then select the file and get into buffering. So Plex server does it for you. And it also kind of creates a Netflix type media library for you. So it's not just like a standard go to the folder called movies and then go 10 levels deep to find out the movie you want or the music you want. It actually gives you a good playlist and a media folder kind of options, and it even pulls in the metadata from internet, so it kind of matches your content with online information like artists, album arts, and everything.
Right.
So it gives you a really cool front end, right? So this is one of the only routers in the market that has this media server built.
So yeah, and to kind of build off that, if anyone wants to find out more about Plex, we did have them on the show about 4 months ago or so. You can of course find it in the archives, and we also did a write-up, an article about what they do. But my question to you is, I mean, Plex is obviously a very versatile, very powerful kind of system, but why does it need to be built into a router? Because so much of Plex, when we talk to them, many people kind of had a network attached storage device. They had their own kind of media server set up. Why was it important to install or make it compatible at the router level rather than the network attached storage level?
Yeah, so I think basically, in fact, in our case now, our Plex server on X10 can actually even get the media source from a network attached storage as well. But think about it this way, right? So your router is still your central hub. Now, network attached storage is one of the clients, and then you have a TV and everybody else who all they go through. All that traffic actually flows through the router itself, which essentially means now if you're pulling in content from these other sources, you're going to have to, in some cases, configure your router for port forwarding if you want remote access. And in network attached storage case and some of the media servers on PC, you need to actually go through some maintenance. We have to go through NAS to download the new version of Plex library and so on. What we have done with X10 as an added benefit is actually automatically keeps your Plex media server updated without you having to do anything, right? So now you don't have to log into your NAS to update that media server. You can just do it. And the other advantage of having it on the router is now, you can have content on USB hard disks, which are connected directly to the router. So you can have multiple libraries, some on your NAS, some on your USB storage, some on your PCs, and your router essentially becomes a de facto central point to dish out that content to every client. So now you're not doing like a mishmash of your TV having to go through the router to a NAS, or your iPad having to pick a library content from somewhere else. The router can do it for you as a central agent. And this is one of the fastest routers out there, so your link also is guaranteed to be the most optimal link performance.
Right. Yeah. It's and that was something that that Plex made perfectly clear, was that media storage, when you store it on your own, there's of course a lot of hardware that you have to pay attention to, but if your network is not up to speed, then Plex can only work with what you give it. So a strong router is definitely recommended. So very, very cool that you've decided to kind of roll it in with it, because it's something that with more streaming content, sure, but systems like Plex are getting more popular. And if nothing else, I'm getting the feeling that the Nighthawk, and the X10 specifically are about future proofing more than they are, or as much as they are about, the performance nowadays. So speaking of future proofing, before we get into some of the other, kind of partnerships that you have with like Alexa, could you speak real quick about, I think many of our listeners, 802.11ac, we talked about it when it became, kind of the new buzzword about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But now we're starting to hear about 802.11ad. So could you talk about the differences between AD, AC, and why anyone should care about 802.11, any letters after that?
Yeah, so I think I would kind of address your second question first, is what the standards 802.11, anything after that brings is this interoperability, a promise of interoperability for the end consumer. So knowing what your product has on both sides kind of ensures that the money you spend is well spent. So it's not like you are adding, let's say, 802.11ad laptop and then your router is not capable, then that money you spent is essentially down the drain. Or if you have that iPhone 6s, 7, or which you are paying, now $20, $30 a month with the next plan or something, right? If your router is 11n, then guess what? All this frustration that, hey, why can't I watch 4K, or why my iPad slow and so on, you won't realize that you spend all that money, but you are not getting the most of it, right? So the basic thing why people should care is it's about interoperability, and it's knowing what's good to maximize your device's potential now and potentially even in the future as the technology rapidly evolves. Think about it this way, right? What is in a sense Google, Apple, and all of those people also fighting on? They're fighting on providing you the best media access because they are trying to sell you media. So as you spend more money on these 4K TVs and iPhones and high-end technology, you need to make sure that your router is capable of handling it as well as giving you the optimized performance you need.
Gotcha.
So so from 11AD is slightly, they have taken a little bit different approach. It's a more short-range technology, which means its range is few hundred feet to less. It's more of a line of sight technology. But what they have done is it uses an entirely different spectrum, 60 gigahertz, and that's the one that gives it enormous boost in performance. So Nighthawk X10 is fitted with an 11AD radio, which can actually give you almost up to 4.6 gigabits per second of theoretical performance. So in our lab test, the router itself has actually handled up to 4.6 gigabits of combined throughput across all the links with 2 gigabits per second over the 11AD link. So what we see is if you are, again, somebody who create a lot of content, like a videographer or an architect who is trying to move a lot of files, X10 has a 10 gig Ethernet connectivity and an 11AD radio. So you can kind of get this fast backup or access to your media constantly back and forth when you're moving large data files. Like 11AD can give you very large movies in 1/3 the time of what an 11AC can do. And of course, there are not too many 11AD devices, so it's much less crowded than 11AC.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that, again, using your situation as an example, 20, 30 devices, if they're all running on 802.11ac, then obviously, AC is going to be much more crowded. Even with all the smart network handling of packets, it's still going to be the thing. But it sounds like that, kind of going forward, 802.11ac and AD are going to coexist more than, one replacing the other. So very important there to remember. So great, this router 802.11ac AD AC/DC, but no, AC AD compatible. And so again, talking about some of the partnerships that you've made, Plex was one of them, and the next one, like, this is why I kind of said that a lot of homes out there are probably going to start having 20, 30 devices in their house. there's things like Alexa that we're going to talk about in just a moment. There's light bulbs, there's sound systems. We've had Netgear on the show recently to talk about their Arlo security cameras and the Orbi, although Orbi is more of a, its own kind of mesh router network. But I mean, things like Arlo, baby cameras. I mean, there's going to be a lot of devices from a lot of different companies that are going to be vying for that network space. So this is obviously important. And one of those, again, is the idea of Alexa, where I think that's going to be one of the big places that network speed and traffic handling is going to really impact people, because you don't want to ask Alexa or Google Home or Apple HomeKit, one of these, a question and then have to wait, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. It's really going to make it seem like a not very good experience. So talk about Alexa. What does Nighthawk do for Alexa, and why people should kind of associate the two?
Yeah, so I think as we kind of look at our customers and how how they are looking for managing their home networks, we of course kind of evolve and kind of stay ahead of competition and innovate in even managing your home router, right? So one of the reasons why platforms such as Alexa are popular is it allows people to do things with their voice, which they don't have to get up and fiddle with another device like mobile device or a laptop or so on. So at least right now, what we have done is we have looked at, or we have done the basic integration with Alexa, which allows people to essentially do certain tasks like creating a guest network. So if you have guests at your home for party or somebody else who you don't want to share your Wi-Fi credentials with, it's people have privacy and security concerns, rightfully so. So they can just kind of say, Alexa, ask Netgear to create a guest network for me, and it will create a guest network without having to learn that router UI or download an app or so on, right? So I think by doing that linking, you kind of are going to allow your Alexa to better handle your router. Right now, of course, we started with some basic commands, and we will have certain more. We are always looking for doing more with it. So we are kind of looking at adding more commands and adding more usability for Alexa. And so that's where the current integration stands.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Alexa does not require, I think, anything more than maybe 802.11.n, but obviously, just like most of these things, the higher priority you can give it and the better network speed you can give it, the better it can obviously operate. So there's Alexa. And so, we touched, again, we had things like Orbi, and I don't think we're ready to talk about just yet some other news concerning Nighthawk. But talking about Nighthawk, I mean, let's talk more about some of the technical aspects of this router. And by the way, Abhay, I might have to kind of stop you here in the middle of the next question. We only have like one or two more. Would you mind staying over, by the way, until into the next half hour?
Sure.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, we only have about one or two more questions. But if you could talk a bit about this thing called band steering I'm seeing. So what is band steering, and why is something that even I've never even heard of? Why is that important?
Yeah, so I think in Nighthawk product line, what we call that feature is Smart Connect, and now almost all of our Nighthawk routers come with it. What it does is, it's again kind of, I know our audience or our users a lot of times is very technology savvy, and but as more and more devices come to your home, most people don't want to get into too much of Wi-Fi management. So case in point is, if you have two bands, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, traditionally a router will create two different network names, something like -2G and -5G, and people can set up their own policies for each one of them. But what it also means is, for a device to connect to these networks, you have to configure each device individually to connect to either 5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz or both, and then the device makes a choice which band it should connect to based on the range. So kind of taking a step back, usually 2.4 gigahertz has a longer range than 5 gigahertz. So if you have two networks
and actually, I'm gonna have to stop you there. We'll come back. We'll talk more about this and wrap this up. But everyone, Computer America, Netgear, Mr. Abhay Bhorkar. We'll be right back. Computer America.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is, 31 minutes past the hour. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and if you're just joining us, well, don't worry. We are talking with Netgear, of course, but if you miss any part of today's interview, you can check it out, computeramerica.com. We have audio, video archives, as well as the show in podcast form. So check that all out, computeramerica.com. So, and again, Mr. Abhay Bhorkar, he is the Director of Product Marketing for the Connected Home for Netgear, and I apologize for having to cut you off there. But continuing on, we were talking about, of course talking about band steering and the idea of all these different bandwidths, and no one like, especially in the home, no one has time to sit down with their router and specify every little thing for every device that they bring into the home. So I'm sorry, please continue on with your explanation.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, essentially band steering and what we call in Nighthawk as a smart connect, what it does is it automatically and intelligently assigns the device to the right band based on the technology, based on how much the router loading it has, so that you could maximize the performance. So the user doesn't have to kind of look at, hey, I'm connected to 2.4 gigahertz, maybe I should switch manually to 5 gigahertz because my Netflix is suffering. The router will kind of make that determination to say, what is the device capability? Is it capable of 5 gigahertz? And as well as, do I have only too many devices? Because even if as we kind of talked about a few times, even if 5 gigahertz is better, if you have too many devices, you might be better off connecting to 2.4. So the band steering essentially is the way to steer the client for joining the right band, and it's kind of called Smart Connect on the Nighthawk routers.
I gotcha. So, and again, we already talked about how tri-band, having that second 5 gigahertz can really speed up these devices, so we can cover that. But the last feature I'm seeing here that I kind of wanted you to touch on was this thing you have here called link aggregation. And it says it gives you the ability to aggregate 2 gigabit LAN ports for faster file transfers. Obviously, this is something that's probably going to be handled locally, but could you expand about, who might be interested in link aggregation and what it's primarily used for in the home?
Sure. So link aggregation is primarily useful really for somebody who has a network attached storage. That's our primary audience for that kind of feature. So until now, right, your Wi-Fi was not the bottleneck. So if you were trying to access some media from network attached storage and you had 1 gigabit Ethernet connection between your NAS and your router, things are okay because Wi-Fi was typically slower than that 1 gigabit link. But as the devices have become more powerful and the router has become more powerful, that 1 gigabit link between your router and network attached storage is now the bottleneck. So what link aggregation allows you to do is really literally put 2 Ethernet cables between your router and your supported network attached storage device, and so you can get more than 1 gigabits of throughput for your media device. So essentially, it's kind of eliminating a bottleneck in your media streaming or backup and restore link.
Gotcha. So, and I'll add actually one more thing, but I was just checking out the Nighthawk X10 because again, this is the one that we did the write up on. We gave it very, very high scores because like you said, it does have all the bells and whistles. But talking about what you've kind of designated this for on your website, you say it's the best for 4K streaming and for virtual reality. So what obviously. These are two technologies that are, just now making their way into the home. But how important was it to have something in your lineup, for Netgear, for Nighthawk, that can handle virtual reality and 4K streaming? Is this something that you're seeing a lot of demand for?
Yeah, so 4K TV or 4K streaming for sure now, right? I think as more and more mainstream TVs are getting the 4K technology, and now Netflix and Amazon video streaming services have started to add 4K content. We do see this as a way of course, those who have cutting edge, they would want to go for something that can handle 4K streaming for sure, because it's almost like 4 times the streaming bandwidth that is required for 4K compared to 1080p or so, close to that. So if you want to enjoy your 4K TV, you need to be able to handle more bandwidth, and your network needs to be able to handle that. So we do see that already. But also to that point, that I know we kind of say future-proof, what we see is most of our average customers replace their router every 3 to 4 years. Now you have to think about it. If you have a router today, what did you have your home network 3 years ago? And then you have to kind of extrapolate it to say, hey, what am I going to have for next 3 years, right? So it's not a one-time purchase. You're looking 3 years out. So if you are buying a router today, you have to kind of ask yourself, hey, in next 2 to 3 years, would I have a 4K TV, or how many devices I'm going to have? And which is where 4K streaming is definitely on our mind. And you can immediately see that, like at least in US, most of the streaming service providers are already touting support for 4K streaming content, right? So that's extremely important. VR definitely is from one of the more fringe benefits of some of the technology. The way we look at it is 11AD radio in this product especially, that actually gives 1/10 the latency of 11AC. What we mean by latency is essentially when you're playing games, it will have much less lag compared to an 11AC radio. So that's where in virtual reality, you're not only adding more content because you're doing 360-degree 4K videos, you also are very subjected to more latency sensitivity. So that's where we kind of see the VR playing out. But of course, VR is a lot more niche compared to where 4K is today already.
Absolutely. And, your point of, thinking about in 3 years, although I'll be honest with you, in, the segment that we do, Computer Technology News, 3 years seems so close, yet the promises from so many tech companies, 3 years seems like a lifetime with what kind of technology is on the horizon. So, and also I'd probably throw in on top of, what you have listed here on the website, 4K streaming VR, but, also for, there's this thing where gamers stream their content to places like Twitch or YouTube or, what have you. I would definitely recommend or put, the X10 up there for one of the best routers for uploading content, not just downloading content as well. So, obviously, yeah, definitely. So obviously all that, and Mr. Abhay, I'm sorry that I held you over a little bit longer than I promised, but if people wanted to find more information, where can they go?
So the best place to go, of course, is our Netgear, netgear.com, and then we have a Nighthawk basically page under Discovery. So if you go to netgear.com, it's very easy to navigate, and it will take you from the home segment to all this cool Nighthawk products.
Gotcha. And of course, it's available in Walmart, Best Buy, what have you, brick and mortar. If you want to put your hands on it, I think, and honestly, I think the thing that surprised me about the X10 was the fact that when I got my hands on it, it was like, you think routers, but you don't think of a 1.5 foot wide package. Like this thing is big, compared to most routers. So, be prepared for that. But at any rate, and Mr. Abhay Bhorkar, he is the Director of Product Marketing for the Connected Home for Netgear. Abhay, thank you so much for coming on Computer America. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. We'll be sure to do it again when you guys come out with, I don't know, AZ or whatever the next standard is. But absolutely, thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. So there he goes, everyone, and that is our interview with Netgear. If you missed any part of that, remember, computeramerica.com, audio, video, and, of course, podcast of the program. So, in the meantime, we have computer and technology news, but actually, before we even get into that, we have a word from one of our sponsors. That's right, and this is for ZipRecruiter. So, are you hiring? Do you know where to find the best place to post your job to find the best candidates? Well, ZipRecruiter can help you post your job to over 100 plus job sites with just a single click. Then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else. And that's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Instead, flips it, it finds them. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. And that can be hard. I mean, if you've been paying attention to the news lately, hey, unemployment is way, way down, and people are finding jobs left and right. So you need to reach far and wide to get your ideal candidate. So no juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. So, find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidate with immediate results. And right now, our listeners, that's right, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/computer. Remember that, computer. That's ZipRecruiter/computer. And one more time, just to make sure you really get a handle on it, ZipRecruiter.com/computer. Check it out, and hey, maybe you'll find that ideal candidate for that job you've just been looking high and low to fill. So there you have it, and that is again one of our sponsors here for Computer America. Now we're going to move on to computer and technology news, and this is all about the latest and greatest technology news concerning you. So here we go, computer technology news brought to you by Fire Dragon Security. All right, so we have a number of them, and unfortunately we don't have the whole half hour to get through the majority of them, but we're going to do what we can. And I think a good place to start, why don't we start with some uplifting news, and what could be more uplifting than a gentleman who has just given, once again, one of the largest donations, kind of, although honestly it is, but one of the largest donations of this century so far, and that's Mr. Bill Gates. And you can, if you're watching the video portion, you can see it up here. This coming from The Independent. And Bill Gates gives away $4.6 billion of Microsoft shares to mystery recipient in his biggest donation since 2000, which is, by the way, about only 5% of his fortune. Almost $5 billion is only 5%. That's right. He was worth something like, close to $90 billion. Something very special about giving away $40 billion and then still having another, $80-90 billion. So good to be rich. And here we go. So once again, The Independent, Tom Metcalf, and saying that Bill Gates made his largest gift since the turn of the century, or 2000, and he gave away 5% of his fortune. Although it was mainly in Microsoft shares. So not like he gave cash, it was shares, but hey, those are as good as cash. So the billionaire donated about $4.6 billion in June And that is according to the Securities and Exchange Commission, because I guess when you move $4.6 billion, you have to alert someone. You have to say, hey, I'm doing this. And there you have it. So while the recipient of the gift wasn't specified, Mr. Gates has made the majority of his donations to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Obviously, that's the one that they run. And he and his wife used to direct their philanthropic efforts. So, it's not, I'm not going to take anything away from it or try to dig on this because he gave it to his own charity, because the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I mean, it's one of obviously the most influential charities out there. I mean, I've seen them pop up from everything from agriculture, farming, humanitarian efforts to, a lot of different endeavors, not just in, third world countries, Africa, and, places like that, but also the majority of their spending does happen here in the United States. So yeah, they help a lot of people. So, and for anyone keeping score, he also gave a couple of other donations, including, I believe it's right here, $16 billion worth of shares in 1999 and $5 billion worth of share in 2000. That's right. And so Bill and Melinda Gates have given away about $35 billion worth of stock and cash since 1994, based on the values of the shares at the time of the gifts. So if it were, if they were to keep those $35 billion worth of stock and cash, if you adjusted it for today's rate, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was about $50 billion. So yeah, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, probably one of the most funded charities out there. So Mr. Gates has probably directed more than 700 million shares of Microsoft into the foundation. And so, yeah, the June gift represents 38% of his holdings in the company and is the largest in a long line of Microsoft share disposals that have whittled his stake from 24% to 1.3% today. Obviously, Bill Gates is almost synonymous with Microsoft, but at this point, he's, not much more than a figurehead and, of course, board member of Microsoft. So, I think he knows as well as anyone that he, even though he only controls 1.3% of the stocks, which is obviously, probably more than anyone else with Microsoft, but even though he only controls 1.3% of the stock, he knows that any donation made in his name will reflect well on Microsoft. His actions are the actions of Microsoft, even if he's not strictly tied to, the success or failure of Microsoft anymore. So Mr. Gates remains the richest person, by the way. He says that his fortune is still valued at $86.1 billion and still ahead of Jeff Bezos. So there you have it. And that, by the way, coming from Bloomberg and, of course, carried by The Independent. But hey, good news. Nothing bad can happen. Nothing bad can happen when charity goes to, when money goes to charity. And by the way, for those of you who don't remember, about 186 other billionaires pledged to give away 99% of their fortune before they passed away. So, yeah, this is something that we're going to see a lot more of. These extremely rich people heading into, charity endeavors. So, all right, there you have it. And now for our next story, let's pick one. And we have time for a couple more. How about this one? So this is something that we've talked about with one of our correspondents, Mr. Gary Kay, and it's the idea of connected health. The idea that smart devices are going to change the game when it comes to monitoring not just activity, but overall wellness. And the idea that you can get a more complete picture of someone's health, not just when they walk into a doctor's office every 6 months, every year, maybe more regular intervals if they're deemed necessary, but rather, wearing a fitness tracker or a health tracker to get a more complete picture. and obviously adjust the care as they see fit. Well, here you have it. And this is from Aetna, whatever. They're one of the largest healthcare providers in the country, and they will get a free Apple Watch as part of a new partnership. Right. And this is honestly, just a personal note. This is what I like to see, being more preventative than reactionary to healthcare. Doesn't just save you, heartache. Doesn't just save you struggle and what have you. It's more about saving money for the entire system. Yes, it saves you money. Yes, you can see problems coming and act on them before they become more expensive problems and, maybe even life-threatening problems. But just, it saves everyone time and energy and money. It's great. So I definitely like this. And the initial cost may be something, but I think in the long run, this has to be something that they, that they see paying off well. So this coming from Ars Technica and Ms. Valentina Palladina, saying that Aetna's 50,000 employees already use Apple Watches as part of their corporate wellness program, but Aetna may soon extend that perk to its customers, saying in a CNBC report that the health insurer has been in talks with Apple to provide free or discounted Apple Watches to its 23 million customers as a member perk. What a perk. And I mean, even just talking about Apple and selling watches, even if they sell them, somewhere near at cost of manufacturing, let's pretend they only make, $20, $30 off of an Apple Watch, ignoring the fact that they're still going to make, if everyone opts into this, or even if everyone gets one for free, they're still going to make, $100 million. And it would probably cement them as the #1 fitness tracker on the market for years to come. Very important. So Aetna sees Apple Watches as a way to further encourage its customers to take more interest in leading healthier lives and tracking their diets better. So calling out diet tracking is peculiar since the Apple Watch doesn't offer diet tracking, but there are plenty of third-party apps that function as food diaries on your wrist. So either way, Aetna clearly sees the value and the ease in exercise and diet tracking that Apple Watch could provide its customers. So Apple and Aetna already have a solid partnership that provides Apple Watches to the company's employees, and this initiative started earlier this year, and the plan was to start subsidizing Apple Watches for a small number of customers. And that may have been the trial run of this new plan, and now the next phase will start soon, as early as 2018. So again, if you are currently a member of Aetna, well, hey, keep an eye out for offers for an Apple Watch. So, the article goes into some detail about, some of the other perks, but the report didn't specify which Apple Watch models would be provided to the customers. And the rumors about the next Apple Watch update have been swirling. Some say the new model, probably named the Series 3, because obviously we're on the second iteration of the Apple Watch, could have standalone LTE connectivity, allowing it to be connected to the internet without an iPhone nearby. But of course, that's just code for you're going to have to buy its own cell phone plan. And so additional rumors mention the non-invasive continuous blood sugar monitoring system and their blood glucose levels. That would help, obviously, diabetics monitor their blood glucose levels. But anything billed as a medical device would have to go through trials and be approved by the FDA first. So, while Apple could possibly integrate this into the Apple Watch, the feature probably won't make it into the next Apple Watch model. So, what they're saying is that these devices, for general health and wellness, they work pretty well. But for a certified medical device, we're probably, a couple of models off before this could be used in any kind of official capacity. Because you can market just about anything as being good for you or promoting wellness. But the minute you say that this can track blood glucose levels, well, that's when you start getting into malpractice and lawsuits and, people people really depending on these for their lives. And that's, I think, a step too far to expect from Apple. But in general, I think Aetna definitely has the right of this by trying to promote preventative steps rather than just being reactionary. Very important. So there you have it. And now let's, I think I have time for just one more story if we hurry up. And yeah, there's a couple on here that I really wanted to do. If you have time and you'd like to go check some out on your own, we would definitely recommend things like UPS will be using VR to train its student drivers. That's right. The future is now, where no longer do you have to sit in front of a TV in the back room and watch VHS tapes recorded in 1983. No. Some companies are now jumping into virtual reality to better serve their training purposes. How about we do this one? So I like talking about Amazon. They're obviously doing a lot of moves to put a lot of people, on edge in different fields. And this is one of the big ones, because I think when you think Amazon, you think either delivered to your doorstep in 2 days, or, if you are in lucky select areas, same hour or next hour delivery. And, hey, that's something that Apple's known for. So now they have something a little bit different, and they're trying it in different parts of the US. Obviously, this is, only going to happen in so many locations, but they're trying it out, and it's called Amazon Instant Pickup. So Amazon Prime now usually does the job if you need something in a hurry, but what if you don't want to wait that couple of hours? And if you happen to live in the right city, you might have that quick fix today, where Amazon has launched an instant pickup service that lets Prime subscribers grab food and other essentials at a staffed pickup location within 2 minutes of ordering them from the company's mobile app, where you probably won't have an urgent need for an Echo, but they could be helpful if you lost your headphones or want a snack while you're in the area. As in, if you want something immediately, well, this could be it. So the chief limitation, where right now there just aren't that many locations, including, the locations include places like Atlanta, Berkeley, California, obviously, College Park, Columbus, Ohio, or Los Angeles, California. And it'll only make sense if you're close enough to swing by on a short notice, as in, kind of what they promised. You have to physically go to Amazon instead of Amazon going to you. What a backwards world. And so the pickup points tend to be on campuses. So for students, you can snag a phone charger in between classes. About the only question is whether or not instant pickup will expand much further. It's highly dependent on Amazon having fully staffed retail presences, chock full of basic goods, and there's no guarantee that those will spread far when Amazon's attention is currently focused on grocery shopping. Again, remember, Amazon, they did kind of sort of buy out Whole Foods. They are but Amazon's so big right now, I can't even say that they're spreading themselves too thin. Everything that they touch, not much of it has gone by the wayside. So it's not even that they're spreading themselves thin, they're just spreading themselves far. So for now, at least, this is more of an upgrade to Amazon's existing pickup strategy than a fundamental shift in how it does business. As in, it's just an add-on. So everyone, music means that we are done with today's show. Again, thank you so much to Netgear for coming on the show, talking about their products, talking about the Nighthawk line of routers. If you missed any of that, computeramerica.com, and check out the podcast or the audio and video archives on any of our different services. So that just about does it for us. If you want to, catch us next time, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern. Check us out tomorrow as we have Darius Derek Shawnee. That's right. And I guarantee you we're going to be talking all about the new Threadrippers and the Intel lineup and how they stack up to one another. He is our graphics correspondent. That'll be a lot of fun. And then the rest of the show, or the rest of the week, we have AMD. I need to be promoting that more. But AMD they're going to be on with us talking about, obviously, some of their products, and Marcel Gagne for our All Linux program. So everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.